back, everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have someone who's restarting their podcast. Yay! And the crowd goes wild. I'm excited to have a podcaster coming onto the show, and we're going to be talking about restarting your podcast, bringing it back, and all of the great work that's happening behind the scenes to do that. And I want you to fall in love with yet another great podcast and podcaster. Patrice, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for inviting me, David. I'm so excited to just talk about podcasting, where it is now, and where I'm going to be going with the Miss Savvy Pro Show. I'm so excited.
Okay, you said the name. Say it again and tell us what your podcast is all about.
So the name of my podcast is the Miss Savvy Pro Show, and I am Miss Savvy Pro on all social media. So that's where that came from, of course. And my show is all about talking to entrepreneurs and people pursuing their purpose, and hearing how their journey to that, as well as seeing how they overcome, how they celebrate, how they market their business. And we just had those conversations to inspire other entrepreneurs, other people looking to pursue their passions, people just looking for that next level of life, right? One of the things we say, we do aspire to inspire. That's the Mr. Savvy Pro Show.
I love it. And I love that you had that all ready to go. That was right off the top of your head. That was great. Well done. I think that's actually a good side note. If you're a podcaster, you need to be able to explain your podcast. Just like Patrice did. It was amazing. That's exactly what you need to do. And I think sometimes people get tongue-tied. They're like, my show's about things and I talk to people about stuff. And you're like, can you explain it? And you did a great job. So well done. That's exactly how you do it, everyone. Rewind that. If you missed it, rewind it. That's how you do it, everybody. So well done. You said you're bringing your podcast back. I have to ask, where did it go? When did it go? Tell me a little bit about that story.
So I had a podcast, and I was actually just reviewing some things. And I was like, okay, I was into season 3 at the time, right? And life starts to happen. I had just but I had just lost my mom, so I was still grieving that. And when you're grieving, it has those different levels, right? And so I just got out of doing the podcast, putting in the effort, and I feel like if you're not going to give it 100%, especially when you're bringing on guests, you kind of need to take a step back. And while I took a step back, I moved to a different state for 4 years just to heal and get back to who I was. And then I came back to my state of Ohio, and I am ready to bring the podcast back, speak to new entrepreneurs that I haven't, older ones, see what they're doing. And that's what so the Savvy Pro Show, it went away, but there are still episodes still on YouTube. So if you want to check it out before we release the new episodes, you can go over to YouTube and just put in the Miss Savvy Pro Show, and you'll see me pop up. But yeah, it's coming back, and I can't wait. I'm just releasing the forms to have people come on as guests. So, just your audience. If your audience is looking to, get some exposure, promote themselves, hey, come over and visit any one of my social media platforms, and the form is there for you.
Excellent. So many questions I have for you. Is the podcast, the revamped, re-released podcast coming soon? Is it different at all from the original podcast, or is it basically the same?
It's the same concept, but even like I was doing the graphics last night, right? And across the board, purple, as you see in my hair, is my color, right? I did focus, because before it was like more like pink and girly, and this time in the graphics, I really got purple in there. I put it out there as bold, and so that alone is going to be like the transitioning point of it. I want it to be bold. I want it to be exciting, and then we're still going to have the concept of just interviewing, but I also want to start bringing in some current events of things that are going in entrepreneurship and talk about those things as well. Because I feel like you want to have a foundation, and the things of that foundation, when it comes to building a business or pursuing your purpose, it's still the same, right? So you still want to keep that there. But, with the new things with marketing and social media and AI, those things are changing so fast. So, I want to be able to, step
Right.
in and also be able to offer that uh, education and awareness and, things to my audience as well.
Okay, so you are an interview-based podcast. This is your opportunity to steal the microphone, hijack the podcast. Who are you looking for as a guest? Who would be your ideal guest? Who do you want on your show? And again, remind them how to connect with you. Who are you looking for? What do you
Okay,
need?
so I first of all, I want to open the invitation up to you because
Oh,
because podcasts are the thing,
yes.
right? It's one of the biggest, like, I'm about marketing. Podcast is an amazing way to market,
Okay.
and to be able to hear your story because
Yeah.
you have like a very broad and great line of different podcasts. So to be able to talk to my audience about how you
Yeah.
do that, not just doing the actual podcast, but the things behind the scenes, because that's important. That's really important too. So, open the invitation up to you. Right.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
coming.
I'm
I'm
so
signed up. All
excited.
right.
I'm
Do it.
so
Yeah.
so excited. It's gonna be perfect. And then of course, like I said, anybody who has I want them to have a passion for what they do. I do not care, and I don't want to demean anybody's profession or field, but I don't care if you have a lemonade stand, right? If you have a passion for that lemonade stand, please come on the Mrs. Savvy Pro Show
Yeah.
and tell us about how you put in so much energy and squeeze a lemon, and you measure the sugar, and I want to hear it. That's what it's the passion which makes the show, right? And so whatever it is, come on. And let's see, who would I want to interview? Um, oh, okay,
Go
so
big. Go big. Who do you
my
want? Come
whole,
on.
like,
Go
if I would
big.
ever be able to interview Busta Rhymes, Mr. Trevor Smith, the rapper. He is like my
Come on.
favorite. I always tell people he's my pretend husband. But in my mind, only in my mind, But I really, it's I have actually admired him so much over his career because he has, I like that he has maintained who he is from the beginning. Since he was in Leaders of a New School to who he is today, he has transitioned as the hip hop industry has transitioned. He has never changed, but he has still been able to be relevant and maintain without changing his habit, without losing his integrity and changing who he is. So I would love to be able to just hear his story and
So imagine if you heard this episode and he heard you just say all those wonderful things about him. And if you got a message from him, what would that do to you as a podcaster, as a fan, to see that pop up on your phone? Oh, it's Busta Rhymes reaching out to you to say, can I come on your show? What would that do to you?
after somebody finds me on the floor because I passed out, after I'm found, and they put the spelling salts in front of my
Right.
face, and I get up, I would just be amazed, and I would feel so blessed and honored. That
Right.
it was even that he even seen it, right? Like, so I just
Yeah.
would be, I'd be flabbergasted. So just thinking about it, I'm flabbergasted. So, yeah, I would just,
Well,
yeah,
you
right.
never know.
If it
You
ever
never
happened,
know.
I would, once I, get up off the floor, I would get into action and do what I need to do to get that man on my podcast and get it together. But yeah, so
Good.
I really respect
All
his
right.
career,
Yeah.
and um, yeah, that's it. And I always tell people too that, and don't get me wrong, I love her, so it's no disrespect, but I always say that Leslie, the singer, wants to meet me. Like, she doesn't know it, but she wants to meet me. So, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to live in a land of delusion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's me.
I like it. I like it. I love it. Okay, so if you are a entrepreneur, if you are resonating with what Patrice is saying, you need to contact her and get on the show. So awesome. I love the idea of the lemonade stand. See, anybody, You have a passion and you can inspire someone. That's what I love about podcasting. You and I are connecting. I'm in Canada. You're in the States, and we're having a conversation. This is
Right.
How would we have ever met? Really? Like in our day-to-day, every day, the chance of us meeting each other in two different countries, pretty slim. But here we are doing this together, and I just appreciate you making time to do this, to share your story with us as well. So
I
I'm
appreciate
excited for you.
You know, just having that pre-conversation that we had. I was like, oh yeah, I got to get to the podcast back. And then you opened up you opened up your resources. You're like, hey, check this out. And then if you have any questions, let me know. Like, that's important. That's, like you said, that is community, and we need more of that.
I love it. I love it. 100%. I'm totally with you on that. So if somebody's listening to this show, Patrice, and they're thinking of bringing back their podcast, and they're wondering if it's even worth it. Like, it's been a few years and my audience is probably gone. I'm starting from zero again. And it's a lot of work to do podcasting. Patrice, like, it's a lot of work to do all this behind the scenes. And most of the listeners have no clue how much work it takes to do this on a regular basis. Any words of advice and wisdom now that you're living this and bringing your podcast back for the listener who's thinking about bringing their show back? What would you say to them to encourage them that they should restart their podcast if they have time and ability to do so?
Just go ahead and do it. And don't think that, because there are a lot of podcasts out there, right? But don't think that the market is saturated, because everyone on this earth has a gift, right? That is going to that makes the world a little bit better, even if it's from your couch or your wherever, right? Your gift is needed in this community. It's a ripple effect. And so come back, because even though you can have a podcast and you think that your concept and your way is just like someone else, nobody is you. Nobody is you. So you can have another podcast about your lemonade stand and how you started it. But, your journey to that was different. Maybe you started your lemonade stand because you wanted to make extra money, or you just wanted to offer lemonade to your community. And that story of why you do that is what makes you different. And that is going to make it what's valuable and what makes it important. Don't let anyone else tell you that it's not important. And the one more thing is that if you do feel like it is a lot, it is. That's the truth. That's a fact. But there's so many resources out there. There's so many people who want to help. Reach out to those, and don't feel like so prideful that you feel like you can't, get help and figure out how you can make it just a little bit easier. And if you have to start off just doing it once a month, once a quarter, do that, until you get back to the point where you used to be. If that's what you want to do, just get your voice up.
Nice. Where did you originally learn about podcasting and went, hey, I could do this? Like, what kind of resources did you originally go to help you learn how to do all this?
Listen, when I first got done, I tell the story. I have one of my favorite people, Miss Tina Hobson. She used to have the Superwoman Network, and she volunteered me to do it. She volunteered. She was like, hey, I got this network, and you're starting a podcast. January, in the beginning of January, so get it together. And I did what she said, and there it was. And then because she had already had a network of people that she was working with, like I said, the community and resources, she was working with a guy named Jerry Live. Jerry Royce Live. And he's an amazing podcaster. And he worked with a lot of like indie artists, gospel artists, and things like that. And he was working with her, and any questions I had, he was very open to answering those questions for me. He had me as co-host on numerous shows. He even interviewed me a couple of times, and working with him, he was like a mentor to me, because I was able to ask me questions. He would tell me things. He didn't mind giving me feedback, all of that. So between him and Jerry Royce and Miss Tina Hobson, two wonderful individuals, that's how I started. I was voluntold, and then they walked me through it.
Nice. Had you found a podcast like this early days before your show was started, or while you're creating your show, what kind of information would be helpful for you as a new podcaster that would have kind of helped direct you in the early days of creating your show? What could we tell a listener who's at the early stages that could help them get started or keep going or keep moving forward with their podcast?
Honestly, like I think one of the trickiest things for me is knowing like the correct equipment and software to kind of use. And I think having someone experienced like you would be great because there may be good equipment and good software out there, but I think that both of those can um or should be chosen according to your experience level with like techie things as well as what type of
Yeah,
show you have. Because if you have guests, you probably more likely are going to have to do a little bit more editing than you do with if you're just yourself on there just talking because you know what you're going to say for the most part. But when you have a
right.
guest, you have to one, you don't know what they're going to say, so you might have to edit some things out depending on what kind of show you have, and then two, um, you don't know how to prepare for it because you don't know how they're going to come across. So, yeah, just knowing the
Right.
software and equipment to use, and then just having, even if you don't tell, even if you don't have anyone to actually tell you everything, but somebody that you know who has done it already that you can kind of speak to.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you have like a
Mm-hmm.
form for your guests to fill out to come on the show and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about what's on that form? Because I think some people listening is like, I never thought about having a form to give my guests. What kind of questions are you asking of your
So the
potential
first
guests?
thing is that the first thing, of course, you want to just get their details, like their name, their websites and stuff. But I also want to ask them like, uh, what was their purpose, like the quotes that they love, uh, and also how they market their promotions, their promo stuff because um I want to make sure that getting those answers. So I want to make sure that they have my resources. So maybe they only market on their Instagram. So I want to say, okay, well, I checked you out and
Yeah,
I see that you have a TikTok. Here are some ways that you can promote on your TikTok so that you can get exposure because it's an opportunity. This is the opportunity for me, right? For someone to hear my story.
yeah,
And like you said, you never know who your audience is reaching, And
right,
so I have questions on there that will just let me know how I need to work with them. And then also kind of give them a feel of what I want to ask them. Because if they haven't had an opportunity to listen to my show yet, then they will kind of be able to prepare themselves for certain questions or stories that may want to tell. Or even if it just prompts their brain to start
nice.
thinking.
Yeah, I have a friend. She spells her name like Jamie, Jamie, but she pronounces her name
Okay, so
Jemmy. So when I look at the form, I would
mhm,
introduce her as Jamie, and her name is Jemmy. So maybe on the form too, something that,
yeah,
how to pronounce your name correctly, especially last names can be tricky. I talk to a lot of people around the world, and I've talked to somebody in Holland. Do you think I could
right,
pronounce their last name? No, I
right,
have no way to do it. So I asked them to introduce themselves on the show because I didn't want to say their name incorrectly. And I wanted them to do it because it sounds much better than a Canadian trying to say someone
right,
from Holland's name in
right,
Dutch.
exactly.
I can't do that. So, right. So maybe on the form is anything about how to
Yes,
pronounce your
that's
name.
smart. Yeah,
Right. And then the other thing, yeah. And then I practice too. And I write it out phonetically. So what I
right.
write it out how it
Hmm.
sounds to me. And then I practice it. So I still get it wrong. And I get embarrassed because I'm like, they're like, that's not how I say my name.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then I fix it. I fix it. But
That's the
we're
thing.
all
Yeah.
humans and stuff. But putting it on there as a way to make sure you say the name correctly is also a nice little
Yeah,
tip
that's
to
true.
them as
I
well.
think I will put that on there. That is a very good idea because people do have their own pronunciations sometimes, and you don't want to just assume.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing too is we got to be very conscious of this is everywhere have
Yes.
people with their pronouns. We want to make sure that we honor that. We don't want to do something out of ignorance that makes someone feel awkward and not accepted on our show. And no matter how you feel about that, there are people that are very passionate about that. So please be kind. Podcasting is meant to be all inclusive and include everyone, and everyone's available to come and be a part of the show. So if somebody makes that a point, I just met with somebody this week and they're non-binary and they wanted they, them pronouns. And for me, as a white male that's a little bit older than most of the people I talk to, it's something I have to practice. I have to do my job to be as inclusive as I can be with the amount of knowledge I have. So I love when somebody makes that a highlight for me, and then I do my best to honor my guests.
I like, and I mean, I don't want to make it, political and things like that, but it doesn't hurt me to say it, right? Like it doesn't do anything for me to just, give them what they ask for, and so, I try to practice that as well. Yeah. Because I want them to come on my show and feel comfortable.
Be kind to people, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. And the other thing interesting, too, is I have an author podcast. And I have, like, ghostwriters come on. And they can't be identified for the book that they wrote. Or they write under a pen name. And when they write under a pen name, sometimes it's because of security. Because of their story and who would hear of them and know them by their given name could cause them stress or safety issues by coming on the podcast. So they have a pen name. So I meet with them and I see their real name on the screen and I know them by their real name. But when it comes to recording, I have to remember this is a pen name and make sure I don't use their real name because it's awkward for them. I'm not doing it live, so I can always edit, but I want to make sure that if they tell me, please use my pen name, that I always use their pen name.
Yeah, and I think, so that's another thing that I need to make sure that I have on there is that maybe you have like a section on there for them to just write whatever they want, because there are some things that you may not cover and that they may not readily remember because a lot of people are nervous. So then that way they have that time to put that in that section so that I can review it beforehand. So yeah, that's great. Thank you. You always give me great ideas.
See? And then I guess one more for you is when we do our introduction of our guest. Sometimes I hear people doing podcast interviews and it sounds like they're reading their resume to us as an introduction. Well, they went to school here and when they were little, they caught a butterfly and their favorite food is this. And, I'm like, do we need all that information? Maybe ask your potential guest, how do you want to be introduced? Can you just write it for me, like in the third person, so that I can just read it for you and I can honor you with a great introduction that you create for me? So I like to do once in a while because some of my guests really want to talk about their website more than the content of what we're having as a conversation. I introduce their website right away and I just say it in their intro. Here, and I'll do it as if I'm doing myself. So here's Dave coming on my podcast. Dave has the howtopodcast.co website, and he has 7 podcasts. Dave would love to help you start a show. Welcome, Dave, to the podcast. So I've already said your website.
Right.
You don't have to say it now. Let's get into the content. Let's start talking about why you're here, then where to connect with you all the time. I just put it right up front. And it's really simple and easy. And they're like, oh, right. You said the website. I'm okay.
Right.
Check. Let's go on to the next thing. Right.
Yeah. So, that's good. Good tips. I should be writing this down. But I will when I watch it over.
Well, right, exactly. We're recording it. We're recording it. There you go.
Let me write these down.
There you go. We got this. We got this. So yeah, I love the idea of you having your own kind of onboarding, fill out the form thing. I think a lot of podcasters should think about that. How do you communicate that form to them? Is it like a Google document? How do they fill it out?
So it is a Google document, and then they will have like a link to it. Then where they can just click the link and go to it. And I don't have it yet, but I will be creating like a Bitly shortly, so I can just say, hey, go, like, for instance, like I do have a Bitly shortly for the actual YouTube page. So it's like, hey, go to the Miss Savvy Pro podcast, and boom, they can type it in as well. So I will have something like that for the form. Good. But like I said, if they go to Miss Savvy Pro on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of those things, they will see me and they can click.
I love it. Okay, so What other things are you kind of working through? You said you worked on your artwork, and it's going to be a lot of purple, which I love. What else are you kind of doing as you rebuild and restart your podcast? Anything that's kind of a hard thing that you're working through that maybe we can discuss and maybe help each other with?
Let's see here. Well, I mean, like I said, I am, still researching. Like, I'll be honest. One of the things that I don't get the much is the RSS, how to get it on like Spotify and Apple and stuff. I don't get. It's like a mind block for me for some reason. So I know how to get it on YouTube and all of those, but to get it on those on those platforms, I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
I would appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I want to help you as much as possible. This is great. So, for the most part, have your episodes for when you had the podcast originally, was it mostly on YouTube?
Actually, I used to have it just on Spreaker, and then I started to upload it to YouTube.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for your podcast, like you can definitely do YouTube. It's a great thing. YouTube is actually really getting into podcasting right now. So on YouTube specifically, if you haven't done so already, on your channel, you'll notice that you have playlists. So you can have a list of all the things you like and put them in there in one spot. So if you like all things purple, you can get every purple thing you find on YouTube and put it in a playlist and call it My Purple Playlist, right? So everything you love about purple is one spot. So, but what you can do is you can take that playlist and rename it and change it into a podcast. And I actually help people with this. So you and I can do this online together later. I can do a screen share and show you exactly, click here, do this. But you can take that playlist and make it a podcast inside of YouTube. And what happens is YouTube then puts it to their YouTube app. So on their YouTube Music app, you can actually hear podcasts now. And you don't have to be on your computer watching the video. You have a slide button at the top of the screen, and you can listen to audio only or video. You have a choice. Cool. You go back and forth. And YouTube will play your podcast, and I can put my phone in my pocket and not watch the screen and still listen to it.
That's what I need. Yeah.
So, so we have to do that. That's one thing. So you're going to take your playlist and you're going to make it into a podcast. Okay. So I have an episode. I'll send you a link to it where I do a video screen thing where you can watch and do what I do and follow me, or we can do it together. Either whatever works for you. Okay. So the other thing is you want to have your podcast outside of YouTube, because if you're only on YouTube, that's the only people who can interact with you is if you're on YouTube. You want your podcast to be everywhere. So think about this for a second. This conversation that you and I are having, somebody in Africa is going to listen to this episode. They're not on YouTube, but they're listening to our conversation right now. And they live in Africa.
Right.
What is that?
That makes me feel great, because that's like you reaching so many people and so far. Like you never know what could happen.
We're also on an app in India. So people are listening to us right now in India. Right. So that's outside of the confines of YouTube. So yes, you can have a podcast on YouTube. Great. Awesome. Do it. Great thing to do. But if you want to go past YouTube and reach some countries that maybe don't have the bandwidth to watch videos on YouTube, you can go audio only or video on outside of YouTube. It's up to you. But I like audio only in the sense that it gives everybody everywhere access to my content, in addition to my YouTube channel. They go together. Okay, they work together. So what you need if you want to go outside of YouTube and get your podcast everywhere, like Spotify and Apple and all those places, is you need a host. And the host is who you give your podcast to. You create your episode, you're all done, and you have your podcast. You give it to your host, and then your host alerts all those places that you have a new show. And then they come to your host, they grab a copy of it, and they bring it back to their platform. And then if you're on Apple or Google or whatever, Spotify, your audience there will hear that you have a new show. And they might not even come to your YouTube channel ever. So they'll hear you. That's
the RSS.
So you need to find a host. That's the RSS.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two options. You can have a paid host where you pay them every month. And when you pay for a host, you get all kinds of benefits because there's a team.
Oh, right.
great. You're actually, there's people there behind the emails when you email them that they're there to help you and they want to work with you. So if you have a question, they have support.
Right.
That's great. You pay every month for your podcast and they give you a certain amount that you can upload every month, a certain number of hours or file size, whatever. But you have a limit every month and you just upload your file to them and they take care of everything.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The only thing that might be a problem is if you decide not to pay for your hosting.
You got to invest.
So
you got to invest in what you believe in.
Credit card stops, right? If your credit card stops or you stop paying, your podcast stops.
Okay.
It's gone. Like gone. It's not available. Okay. So that's the one downside to having a paid host. Just think about that. So if you decide to take another break in the future and you stop paying for your host, they're not going to support you and keep your podcast alive while you're gone. That's it. Okay, so just keep that in mind because that's one thing that I was struggling with. I have 7 shows. So to pay 7 times the price of everything that it takes to podcast is quite expensive. So I have 3 shows on a paid host, and I'm using a host called Buzzsprout. It's great. It's like $12, $18 a month. And it's great. They're great. They give you great information about who's listening to your podcast, where they are in the world, what they're listening on, what kind of device. They give you all kinds of information. It's great.
I like that.
It's really nice. Because I know that there's a listener in Africa, like I mentioned. So I know that because I can see it in my information when I see my stats. So that's really cool. So that's a paid host. Any question about paid hosting?
I got that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Option 2 is a free host. Ta-da! You can actually have a host that you don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
And they won't take your podcast off if you stop paying because you're not paying.
Yeah, right.
How about that, right? So that site used to be called Anchor, but now it's called Spotify for Podcasters. That's the name of the spot. It's not just for Spotify, though. You can have your podcast there, and they will give you that RSS feed, that address to your podcast that you can share with Apple and Google and all these other places, and everybody can have access to your information from your host. So I have 4 shows on Spotify for podcasters, and I have 3 shows on Buzzsprout. That's how I do my shows. And I have no limits on the free host. I can upload as many episodes as I want, never have a bill. I still get customer support as well. There are amazing people there that will help you. And they have great tutorials and teachings on how to podcast there as well. So they're really good. The downside is you have to do a little bit of work to set it up in the beginning. But once you've done that setup, you only do it once and you're done. You never have to do it again.
I'm kind of excited to do that.
So I help people with the initial setup as well. So I'll do the screen share. You want to do the setup. You want to do it under your email. You don't want me to do it for you under my email because then I own your podcast. And if I'm having a bad day, I can just delete it because I own it.
Right.
So you want to set it up under your email address, right? But if you can have somebody, I'd love to do it with you, but sit with you and do a screen share and I'll show you how to set it all up. And then once you set it up, you're done. You never have to do it again. You just upload your next episode and they take care of everything. So that's the free side. So you have a choice. You need to decide, do you want to pay for it and have somebody with you, working with you from a paid host, or do you want to do it yourself and set it up on a free site? You have to make that decision.
I think I might try. I'll try the free site, and then of course we can always upgrade. It's not set in stone.
You can always change. You can start with a paid site and move to the free. You can start with the free and move to the paid. You can do whatever you want. So whatever works for you, that's the main thing. Does that help give a little bit more clarity to
it was
how
like
that
my
all
mind
works?
was mentally blocked about the RSS feed, and I'm like, I was doing something like that, and I was like, it's not going to where I needed to go, and now I understand. So I just need to do a little bit of extra work, and makes it happen. Perfect. Thank you. A wealth of knowledge you are. Thank you so much.
There you go. Well, hey, it's a lot of trial and error trying to figure it all out and listening to other people who are way smarter than I am, who have helped me as well. So I just want to be able to help other podcasters with their show. And whatever I can do to help you, that's why I'm doing this podcast.
This is the community we were talking about, of people who just want to see other people do well. I just want to see you do well. That's it. And,
yeah, that's it.
And hopefully either I will be able to return the favor in some way, or just the favor is returned to you from just in the universe. That's how I see it happening.
Yeah. I love it. Now, for your episodes that you did, those 3 seasons you had before, do you still have all the recordings? Do you still have everything that you did in the past, or are they all gone?
I know I think I still have them because they're on my old computer, and I still have my old computer.
So you could take all those episodes and re-upload them as new content. Again, whatever you want, whatever episodes, all of them or some of them, and those could be a starting point for you. So you don't have to start with 0 episodes. You could just pull in some of the ones you really liked, or all of them, and start with that entire library. And you start with that much content to begin with. Do whatever you want with them. If they're already done and they're available and you like them, they bring value to people, share them.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Reboot that computer and get it ready to go. That's a good idea.
And you can add new artwork to it. You can update the titles.
We were talking about that. Yeah.
You can go in and listen to them. Yeah. You can do all that stuff in the background and just refresh them.
Yeah, it's good content. It is good content. It was good then, and it's good now.
And you have great interviews with people. So people brought great value to your audience by being on your show. And then you can tag those people again and say, hey, podcast has come back. Here, we've re-released your episode from a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago. It's back. And I just want to let you know that it's uploaded again. And they could share it again. And there you go. Your audience already just grew, just like that.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
See? Yeah. That's great. What other thoughts or concerns, questions you have as you relaunch your show? Anything else?
I have a question for you. What is your favorite, because I want to interview the interviewer. What is your favorite way to market your podcast?
I love being a guest on shows and having guests on my show. For the main reason, and I say this quite often with my guests, is I find that if you reach out to listeners on a listening app, they're more likely to listen to your podcast than on a social media app. Specifically because not everyone on social media even knows what a podcast is. Right. So you're talking to people who are like, I don't even know how to listen to a podcast. And you're telling me to click this link. I don't even, do I have to pay? Am I paying for this? How much does this cost to listen to your show? Oh, it's free. Oh, do I have to subscribe? Is that like Netflix? Am I going to get I don't understand how this works. And so we're telling them, hey, new episode. And they're like, who are you? And what is this? I don't even know what a podcast is. I just like you. I think you're cool. So I'm following you. I don't even know what is a podcast.
That is true.
So, but on a podcast listening app, they're listening to this podcast right now. I would love for them to click one button and go right to your show. And now they're listening to you. They follow you. They subscribe to your podcast on their app. And every time you release a new episode, it goes right to their phone, right to their device. So it sits in a folder waiting for them to hit play.
Yeah, it's just there, awesome. Right.
So I love to throw a spotlight on great podcasters on my podcast. And I find that really helps me to grow faster than trying to convince somebody who has zero interest in what a podcast is.
You just bring it to them.
To convert them to become a podcast listener.
Wow, okay. I like that.
Right.
That's good, because I would never have even thought about it from that concept, like that way. And I am a marketer. Like, branding is my thing.
So now I want to make sure everybody understands. I'm not saying that social media is bad.
Option.
I'm just saying it's more work.
Right.
It's just more work because you have to explain what a podcast is and get them excited about podcasting and then introduce your show. You can't just introduce your show because they'll be like, I don't even know what's going on. So just understand that it's not impossible. It's just a little bit more work. So if you have money or time that you want to invest to get more listeners, I would say go to where the listeners
Go to your audience.
And maybe make that your priority. And if you want to advertise and you want to do stuff on social media, great. But I would say I would lean heavily more towards being a guest on podcasts or advertising on podcasts or whatever, because those are the people who actually know what a podcast is. You don't have to convince them. They already love podcasting. So let's do that. Because what's happening is there are millions of podcasts out there, episodes, but there's only a small amount of podcasts that are active, producing regular episodes on a regular basis. So there's more listeners than there are active shows. So if you want to grow a community, be active, create content on a regular basis, whatever that means for you, once a month, once a week, five times a week. I don't know, whatever you can do, but create regular content because that audience is hungry for their next episode to listen to because there's less and less and less episodes going out. So there's more people who want podcasts and less people who are making them on a regular basis. So don't be afraid of the 4 million episode number. Yeah, there's 4 million episodes in the world, but like 200,000 are actually active. And then if you go to your area, your focus of what you're talking about, now you're talking about like 11 to 20 shows who talk about you. How active are those 11 to 20 shows? There might be 5 shows that are regularly active on a topic that you cover. You're not competing with 4 million, you're competing with 5. So focus on that and don't be discouraged by a big number because they're not all active. So don't worry. You got it. People are going to love your show. They're going to connect with you and they'll be your community. They will promote you. They will support you. And the other thing I would say as coming back to your podcast is try that engagement piece as soon as you can. Give your audience a way to reach out to you and communicate with you. So it's not just you talking to them, but they can talk to you. So through social media, that's great. Do that. That's awesome. I love going into my new followers on social media, on Instagram specifically, and I go to the DMs and I leave them a voice message. And because they hear my voice on the podcast. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, Patrice, it's Dave. Thank you for following me on Instagram. Just wanted to say thank you for supporting me and the show. If there's anything I can do to help you in the future, let me know. Just wanted to say thanks. Who does that on social media? It's always these automated things, or I hire somebody to pretend to be me to talk to you, and you think you're talking to me, but you're talking to my assistant, right? It's all kind of, I want to put social back in social media. And when you hear the voice of your favorite podcaster in your DMs, it's like something that can't be automated. That was personal between the host and you as a listener. And that can't be done. That can't be done in bulk. It can only be done one at a time. So if you do that to somebody, and the other thing I do is I put on my website a thing called SpeakPipe. And SpeakPipe is free. Yeah, SpeakPipe. My listening audience, they can leave me a voice message on my website. And it comes right to me in an email. And I hear your voice recorded. I can bring your voice into my podcast and acknowledge you. And what happened this week is I had a gentleman, his name is Anthony. He listened to my show and he started a podcast. And he sent me a message to say thank you. So I brought his message in. I created an episode just for Anthony. And then I brought his trailer, his first episode, and I put it in and I made a little mini episode to promote his podcast.
That's
to say
amazing.
Thank you to Anthony. So now all my audience now knows about his new show. I get to talk him up and promote him. So now he has access to all of my listeners as he starts his show as a brand new podcaster. So he's not starting from zero. He's starting with my audience. So all of my audience knows about him. And now those people are going to come and check him out and support and love him. So using SpeakPipe is a great way to get feedback from your audience and then use that feedback to promote your audience. And then once you do that, then you get another message and then another message. And now you're having a conversation with your audience. You're not just talking to them, you're talking with them and speaking with them. So that, and SpeakPipe is free.
Wow, I'm going to have to check this out. I love talking to you.
See?
I love it. This has been great.
See? So, and again, all of these things we talk about, if you're like, Dave, I love it, but I can't figure it out, send me a message. We'll do this, a video thing, and I'll show you. You take the screen, and I'll show you where to click and how to do it, and you're done.
I appreciate you so much.
Okay. See? See? And that's what this podcast is all about, is I want people to connect with you and hear your story so you can inspire them to restart their podcast, because we need people like you in podcasting. People with a heart to serve people, people with a heart to share people's stories. I love the idea of your show, and I'm so happy to hear it.
Thank you. I am, like I said, I want to thank you because when we talked, I was, when I reached out, I was kind of like on the fence, like, when am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? One of those things where you put it on the back burner. But after talking to you, you were like, well, you can do this, and this is what we do. And I was like, okay, get to work, put it on your to-do list. Let's get this going, because I am accountable today to get my podcast back on. So, yes, thank you. I appreciate you.
And I will be listening for this, waiting for this podcast to come out so I can subscribe and I can share. Right? I'm waiting. I'm waiting
back
for you.
In November, the first Tuesday in November, which is going to be the 7th. The 7th. So, yes. November 7th, the Miss Savvy Pro Show is back.
Love it. Come on. I love it. Okay, so any other things that we can chat about before you go? You've been very gracious with your time to do this with us today. Anything else that we can help you with?
No, I think as of right now, I may have to come back, but yeah. As of right now, I've got some work to do, and I am excited to do it. Thank you for the resources.
And I can't wait to be on your show. Come on. And when the podcast is ready on November 7th, would you please come back somewhere around that time frame and let's celebrate the podcast being relaunched? Can you come back and have a party?
Yes, I would love Come on. I will come back.
I'm going to have to get like a party hat. I'm going to have to get a hat. I'm looking for a party hat while we're talking here. I have to do something. We'll celebrate the relaunch of your podcast.
That would be so cool.
I love it. Okay, so before we go, again, how do people connect with you, and what do we do as a listener? Where do we find you?
So I want to talk if you want to find me, all you have to do, and I hate to I'm saying this very humbly, but Google me. Google Miss Savvy Pro. That's MSSAVVYPRO, Miss Savvy Pro. My real name is Patrice Jackson as well. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm based out of Cleveland, Ohio. And just Google me. I'm on Facebook. X now, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Snapchat, everything. I'm Miss Savvy Pro. That's who I am. That is me.
I love that everything points back to you. That is super smart. That's a marketer right there on the screen. That's a marketer. I love it. So when you come back in November, I want you to talk to us about marketing. I want you to give us a master class on marketing our podcast. All right. You're the expert. Can you do that?
Yes,
can you put some thought to that?
I would love that.
All right. I am going to take notes. I need to learn from you. You are an expert, and I'm so excited to have you as part of our How to Podcast family.
You. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This has been a great day. Loved it.
Okay. So again, I'm offering, if you need any help at all with any of the stuff we talked about, please reach out and we'll set up time together. And
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start working on that today. And then when I have my questions, I'll put them in an email. Then we can go from there, because I know I'm going to have so many.
and I want to give you one last piece of homework. I want you to go to my website, and I want you to leave me a message on SpeakPipe, so you know what it feels like to leave a message. And I'm going to bring you into my podcast. Okay.
I'm so excited.
So just promote your podcast or ask a question, whatever you want, and I'm going to bring your message into the show.
Okay.
So I want you to see how it works.
Okay, cool.
So you can do it.
Cool. I cannot wait. Okay. November 7th will be here before you know it.
You got homework. I
like homework. I'm such a nerd.
All right. I love it. Okay, everyone, make sure you go check out all the information in the show notes. And and November 7th is the date. Yeah, a new podcast is coming back, and you're going to love it. So
thank you for having me on the show. It's been a great time.